Knowing what you know, is there anything you would have done differently when authoring your book?
Anything done differently when authoring your book? I think we took for granted the actual grind of playing all the games and reviewing them.
Sure did.
You know, so you play a game like, I don't know, even I just randomly turned to like one that I did, Little League Baseball Championship Series. All right, a game like that, maybe you can play through, I don't know, 3 games, 4 games. You get a feel for it, all the modes. You don't have to play it for a huge amount of time. You know, a game like Marble Madness, you can play the game in like literally 10-15 minutes and play through it. Plus, I played it before. That's not bad. But then you got a game like Silent Service, where you hear from people, oh, it's a bad game, it's terrible, blah, blah, blah. Well, then I have to take the manual, read through the manual, play the game, figure out, am I playing it right, then actually get up to a competent enough level that I can start actually reviewing it. And figure out that, am I competent enough to know how to play the game first? Once I'm there, now I can play it for a couple hours. And that's what I did with a game like Silent Service.
Yeah.
And then play through like a few missions. There's the mode where you just go around on your own and try to find trouble and blow up stuff. And it's actually a good game if you learn how to play it. So I think that's the learning to play some of these games. I think, not that I took for granted necessarily, but it's more time than I thought it would be. You know, playing through a game like, I don't know, let's see, I played Terminator 2, for example. And, yeah, I want to play through all that freaking game because, you know why? In that game, the levels are different. There's different objectives to them. So you can't just play the first level, the first awful level. It actually gets better from there. I'm not saying it's a good game. I give it a little above average because of different elements. But, I mean, you can't just play a game for the first 5-10 minutes and say, that's it, I reviewed it. That only works for like an arcade game, really.
Right.
You can't do that for a lot of these other type of games. So that I would say before Ian gives his answer. And then what's still haunting me is finding some of these shadow developers for these games, which isn't about the review, but more about trying to track down who actually did the port of a game from a PC version, who did the port of the arcade version. A lot of information is not easily out there. You have to really research and to find it. And that's really, I think, I stumbled on. I think I took for granted how much information was bad on the internet, and I think if I had known better, I would have focused on that more up front, or dedicated at least someone up front to researching a lot of that for me, instead of going back and then trying to fill in the holes after the fact. Because Wikipedia is wrong, a lot of websites are wrong, like NES Guide aren't correct, and so a lot of information out there is just not correct. So those are the two main things.
I mean, my answer is I actually, very similar to Pat's. It's a grind. Yeah, you got it's not a cursory 5-10 minutes. You got to play the games for quite a bit of time. Ideally, you want to beat the games, but if you're not going to, you have to give these platformers, these adventure games, you have to give them a good amount of time, because if take a game like Uninvited or Deja Vu or something like that, you can't just start off, get frustrated, and write it off as a bad game. You have to see how the puzzles make sense. You have to see how the progression goes. You have to see if you have to get used to the game's logic and see how it makes sense, and if it's something that as you get into it, you get into the groove of a game.
Which is why I had one person, Joey Rue, Wolf, he reviewed all 3 of those games. Deja Vu, Uninvited, and Shadow.
Yeah.
Because he's familiar with the genre. He knows the genre. He's played them before, so he can do it justice, and he wouldn't be someone that would quit after 5-10 minutes.
Right.
Same with like those Koei strategy games. I'm the worst person to do it.
Yeah.
Because I never played them really before, but I got a couple people that had played them, and they did most of the Koei games, and so they were familiar with the genre. They knew what to look for. They wouldn't turn off after 10 minutes saying, I don't understand. Like us trying to play it during the NES Marathon. We don't know what we're doing because we don't have time to learn it.
And you absolutely, the number one thing is you cannot rely on memory. I mean, to a degree you can. You can go into a game being like, okay, this is going to be an easier one for me to review. But, you'd be surprised, that... I can't think of any examples off the top of my head, but you could go into a game knowing you had as a kid, and you think you know it, and you'll go in, and it might be a game that you thought you hated as a kid, and you play it, and it's better. And you can't... When you're looking at a list of, like, say, 10 games you want to review that day, and you're looking for a shortcut, maybe, and you're like, oh, this one's going to be easy, you find yourself remembering that you like it a lot more than you did, or you don't like it nearly as much as you did, or you're forgetting a key mechanic, or you're remembering it in a way that you've forgotten completely. You really have to go back, and even on the games that you remember the most.
Do you have an example of one that you either liked more?
I'm trying to think. There were ones that were like that, but I just, off the top of my head, no, I don't. I just know that they existed. I know that they existed when I went through and played them again.
Some like Skate or Die had to relearn how to play the different modes. Like I couldn't do a handstand or headstand or whatever in the game. I was like, oh, how did I do that? Okay, now I can do it. Now I can more competently rate it. But you had to knock out also the nostalgia factor. I feel like I did my best. There's a couple games I went back to. 2 games that I had as a kid where I was like, you know what? I got to deduct a half star because I think I'm being a little bit too easy on it. Three Stooges, I went back and deducted a half star on it. I did the same for a Top Secret Episode. I think I downgraded from 4 to 3.5 stars, and I'm like, I think that's more fair. I think because I really was more familiar with it and grew up with it, that I was giving it too much of a benefit of the doubt at the time. So, and others' difficulty was trying to knock out all the, I guess, if you talk about a game like Super Mario 2 or Top Gun, where people are like, oh, this is a bad game. It's like, Top Gun's not a bad game at all. It's like, so you try to just block off all the shit you hear the past 15 years about that game is bad, or maybe the game's better than it should be, and then you try to go in cold and just go in like, it's hard to go into a game you have thinking you never played it before, but that you have to try to do your best for ones like that.